Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. It's Spider Codes and I hope you're having an awesome day. So in today's video we're going to talk about Passport.js and how to implement it inside our project. So stick around. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you find this video valuable, please just make sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. So before we actually get started and get our hands dirty with coding, what I want to do is just give you a little bit of explanation on what Passport is and how we can use it inside our application. So Passport is just basically an authentication middleware, and if used correctly, it can take a lot of load off your shoulders because it's really powerful. So one thing that I have noticed about Passport is that a lot of people seem to be intimidated about it because, quite frankly, if you don't know what exactly is happening in Passport or what's going on behind the scenes, it can get a little bit tricky. So I want to make sure that by the end of this video, you're confident enough to use it inside your own project. So there are a lot of strategies to use in Passport, and they're all just different packages and methods that we can use to develop our authentication. But we're going to use this Passport's local strategy that uses username and password for authentication. So let's just get started. I'm gonna pull up my terminal and cd into desktop, create a new directory called passport tutorial, cd into it, and after that I'm gonna initiate a new package.json and code inside our project. Right, we're inside VS Code, and let me just initiate git before I forget it. So git init, and there are a bunch of dependencies that we're going to install, and just go ahead and install them after me. So I'm just gonna install the dev dependencies first. So npmi-d for development, nodemon, and .env, and I'm gonna install our actual dependencies now. So express session, and we also need EJS for templating engine. Also we need passport local. We need express flash to flash messages to our users when interacting with our forms. So what I'm gonna do is just hit enter, and when all of these dependencies are installed, I'm gonna see you after that. So our dependencies are installed, and I've just went on and added this new script to our package.json. So now we can finally get started and code our application. I'm gonna say index.js, create this file, which is going to be the entry point to our project. But before I actually insert anything inside this index.js, I'm gonna create a .getignore file. So getignore, and I'm gonna put node modules and .env, so when we push it to GitHub, they don't get pushed. All right, while we're at it, let's just continue and create .env file. I'm gonna put the port here as 3500, close that, and we're ready to set up our Express server. So I'm gonna require Express, and I'm gonna require .env and call the config method, so it loads all of our environment variables. Port is going to be process.env.port, or if that's not available, I'm gonna say 6500. All right, so let's just tell our app to listen on this port and log a really basic message to the terminal. So server is running on HTTP localhost, and give it this port. All right, we're all set here. Let's just define a really basic endpoint to test our application. I'm gonna give it request and response objects and res.send hello world. All right, so let me just start our server, going to this URL. As you can see, we have the hello world and everything seems to be working perfectly fine. So what I'm gonna do next is just set up and create a bunch of folders so we can see and structure, and so we can see the overall structure of our application. So I'm just gonna create a config folder. We're gonna put the passport configuration here eventually. After that, we're gonna have views for our HTML pages. After that, public, and also we're gonna have middlewares for the error handler and other middlewares that we're going to create. So after that, I'm gonna set a bunch of middlewares for us to use. So app.use, I'm gonna say express.url encoded, pass the extended option as false, and I'm gonna say app.use express.static. We're gonna make the public folder static. So and I'm also going to set the view engine to EJS. So view engine is going to be EJS. All right, so the next thing we should do is actually render our different EJS files, which we haven't actually created, but soon we're going to do that. So what I'm gonna do is let me just go ahead and say render, and this I'm gonna empty that. All right, so I'm gonna copy this and duplicate it 2 times. So this is gonna be index, and for register route, we're gonna render register, and for login is also going to be login. So since this is relevant, the path is relevant to views, we can just tell the names, and we don't even have to put the AJS extension because we set the view engine as EJS. Express knows automatically to look for those files, so I'm just gonna remove it. All right, so everything seems to be working. Let's just create our actual files. So index.ejs. I'll do it really quickly. So home, copy that, and inside here I'm gonna say login.ejs and register.ejs. All right, paste them here. Let me format that, and here I'm gonna say register, and also put the corresponding name here. All right, formatted, and login page. All right, so we're done with the pages. So let's just go ahead in the browser and test them out. We have the home page, register page should be fine, and we also have the login page. All right, so everything is working. The next thing that I'm going to do is actually create a middleware, and more specifically error handling middleware. So I'm gonna say, oh, I'm sorry, not inside config, inside middlewares. I'm gonna say error handler.js, and I have explained this error handling middleware in my previous videos, and this is a really good practice to handle Node.js errors this way. So I'm gonna say function app error, and it's gonna take 2 parameters, status code and message. All right, so I'm gonna say error.call this, and again error.capture stack trace. I'm gonna give it this. So functions are first class citizens or objects inside JavaScript, so they can have their own properties. So I'm gonna say this dot status code is going to be status code, and this dot message is going to be message, After that, we need to say app.error.prototype. So I'm setting the app error prototype to be, I'm gonna call this create method and give it the native error object and the prototype property. Right after that, I'm gonna say app error prototype.constructor, if I spell it correctly. All right, and it's going to be app error itself, and our error handler. It's gonna be an arrow function, and I'm gonna pass it 4 parameters: error, request, response, and next function. I'm gonna define 2 variables here: status code, basically the same variables that we have defined here as parameters. So status code is going to be error.status code, and if that's not available, we're gonna set this variable to 500. The same is going to be for message, error.message. If that's not available, it's gonna be internal server error, which is a really generic message for this status code. So I'm gonna console.error this error, and after that return res.status, set that to the status code that we have defined, and I'm gonna return this as JSON object containing all of our properties. Alright, so with that out of the way, we are ready to export them. So let's say module.exports and the app error. Alright, so now inside our index.js, what I'm gonna say is, after all of these lines and right before app.listen, I'm gonna say app.use error handler. Alright, so it's helping me. Alright, so we are almost done here, and we have defined our error handler. The next thing that I'm going to do is actually complete the structure of these EJS files. So the home page should contain some links. So I'm going to say link, it's going to be to register, and after that this is going to be to login. Alright, and also let me just copy these links so we don't have to write them again. Come to login, and inside login we're gonna have a link to home and to register. Alright, so after that inside register, I'm gonna say we're gonna have a link to login page and to the root of our project, which is home. Alright, so now that you're inside register, what I want to do is just let me format it again. I want to write the HTML for our HTML form. So we're going to have a form, and the users are going to use it to send their data, and we can sign them up using that data. So I'm going to say form, and the action is going to be register, and the method is going to be post. Right, so inside that form, what we're going to need is so let's say input text, name is going to be email, and we don't need an ID. Let's say autocomplete is off, and we're gonna have a placeholder that says email. Alright, so let me just duplicate this 2 more times. This one is going to be name. Autocomplete should be off. Alright, this should be password. We could pass the email type here, but I'm not gonna do that. It's okay with text. And this should be password. and I'm gonna say password here again. All right, the last thing that we need to add is a button. So button, and it's gonna be submit button. All right, so what I'm gonna do is just copy this form and go to login, and let me just format it first, and here I'm gonna paste it. This should be login, and it should be a post method. And after, for login, we're only going to need the email and the password, so I'm going to remove this one. Alright, so everything seems to be working fine. This should be login. Alright, so let's just check them out and see what we got so far. Right, so this is our login page. And let's go to register. This is our register and our home. So what I want to do is just add a little bit of CSS. So style.css. Gonna add some global styles. Margin 0, padding 0, box sizing is going to be border box, and for our H1s, I'm gonna say they should have margin bottom of 1.5 rem, and our links or anchor tags, they're gonna be text decoration is going to be none, and I'm gonna say text transform is gonna be capitalized, and they're also gonna have some margins. So alright, so I'm gonna put some margin on the body too, so it's gonna have a, no, actually I'm gonna put some padding inside here. So alright, so let me just link this inside our index.ejs. So I'm gonna say link colon css, gonna take care of that. If I go to home page and refresh, you can see it's working just fine. And alright, so this is working just fine. So for the next part, what we're going to do is we're actually gonna start implementing the logic for passport. So what I'm gonna say is I'm gonna require some variables here. So flash, say express flash, and const session is going to be require express session. Alright, so I'm gonna use them. So app.use, and we're gonna use app.use for session, and it's gonna take a bunch of options. The first one is secret, and we're gonna leave it empty for now. The second one is going to be resave. I'm gonna say false, we don't need that. Save uninitialized, false, and also we're gonna have cookie, and it's gonna have its own option. So max age, I'm gonna set to 30 seconds, so 30 times 1000 milliseconds. Alright, so for the secret, what I'm gonna do is just open a new terminal, and I'm gonna say node to enter the node environment. I'm gonna say require crypto, and I'm gonna say random bytes. I'm gonna give it 64, close that, and to local string. Alright, and this is our new secret. I'm gonna exit this. Alright, close it. So inside our .env, I'm gonna say secret, read that. Alright, so we have our secret. Now I'm just gonna give it to the express sessions. So process.env.secret. All right, we also going to have a store for saving all of our sessions inside that store. So we're using MongoDB for our database. We're going to store our users inside the MongoDB database and also our sessions. So what I'm gonna say is inside.env, I'm gonna say db URI. It's going to be, so I have the MongoDB community server on my machine. So I'm just gonna say MongoDB. I'm gonna point it to localhost. If you do not have the MongoDB community server on your machine, I'm gonna provide links to installing it and where you can get that. So when you install it, you can just use it on localhost, just like me. So I'm gonna say the default port is going to be 27017, and I'm gonna use MyDB. All right, so the next thing that we should do is let me see, we have, all right, so what I'm gonna do is go to express session. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the npm page for that, and if you go way down here, you can see all of these stores that help us store our sessions inside it. We're gonna use this one, connect Mongo. So I'm gonna install it. So let's copy this command, go to terminal. Right, so, and we're also going to need to install Mongoose. So I'm not sure if we installed it. We haven't. All right, so after that we could install Mongoose. All right, npm I Mongoose. Mongoose is an ODM which is going to help us. It's going to facilitate interacting with our database. So get those out of the way. I'm gonna close this one, and we have both of them right here. All right, so let's just create a connection to our database using Mongoose. So I'm gonna say const Mongoose. All right, Mongoose is gonna be requiring Mongoose, and const Mongo store is going to be require what was it again? Let me see. Connect Mongo. All right, so just let me just copy this line, go back here. All right, so what I'm gonna say here is mongoose dot connect, and I'm gonna pass in the connection string. So it's gonna be MongoDB. It's gonna be the same string as what we have inside our .env. So I'm just gonna say process.env.db URI. Make sure I get that correctly. All right, and then I'm gonna say console.log connected to DB. All right, and I'm also going to change this a little bit. So let me cut this, and I'm going to say mongoose.connections.once. Alright, this should be connection and once. So this is gonna be run only once. So say open. So when this event triggers, what we're going to do, I'm going to just tell our app to start listening. So we basically want to tell our app to start listening and start our server only if we actually have a healthy connection to our database. So let me just test this out. Alright, so this is working all fine. Alright, so the next thing we should do is to actually implement this Mongo store inside our session middleware. So when we create a new session, it's going to automatically save that session inside our session store. So what I'm gonna say is inside the options of this session middleware, and under resave I want to say store, and it's going to be a new Mongo store, and it's going to take a bunch of options. Make sure I put the comma here, and the first thing I want to give it is the collection name, which is going to be sessions. So collection with this name is going to be created for us, and the next thing is Mongo URL, which I'm going to give it from the env file. So process.env.db URI. Alright, so with that out of the way, we could finally go ahead and start working on the actual logic for the implementation of Passport. And I apologize for all the boilerplate code and the long setup that we had to go through, but trust me, this was all needed to make this a really good example. So under config, I'm going to create this file, passport.config.js, and the way we're going to approach this is I'm going to write down the code, and then I'll be back with the explanation, and I'll try to make this as clear as possible. So the first thing we're going to need is the local strategy. So local strategy, I'm going to require it, passport local, and get the strategy out of it. All right. And the next thing is mongoose, because we're going to have some calls to our database. So alright, and we also going to need bcrypt, and I don't think we have installed it. Alright, we haven't installed it, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and install bcrypt, and I'm going to wait until this installs. Alright, it's installed, so let's just require it. And then I'm gonna initiate a new function, and the way I like to do this is to put all the logic inside this function, and then I can call it and require it in this file. So what I'm gonna say is const passport init is going to be a function, and it's gonna take in passport as a parameter, and inside here we're gonna have a callback function, verify function, going to be async, and it's going to take a email and password and a done function. Alright, so we're gonna leave it the way it is for now, and we're gonna add passport dot use, and we're going to tell it that we're going to use the local strategy, and inside this we're gonna give it the object of options and this verify function. So inside here I'm gonna say username field is going to be email. So when passport actually receives the request body from the user that we're trying to sign up or log in, is going to automatically look for this email field, because we have set this username field to email, and it's going to extract that information along with password for us. So we could provide the password field, but the default value is just password, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. And after that we're going to need two more things. So passport dot serialize user, and it's going to take a function as a parameter, and it's going to be user and done, and I'm going to duplicate this. This should be deserialized, make sure I spell them correctly, and here should be ID. Alright, let me just export this. So module.export is equal to passport init, and we're done with this. So I'll be back with the actual implementation of the code, but for now let me just go ahead and call it here. So passport init, I'm gonna call it and pass it the passport. Alright, so everything seems to be working fine, and we need to set up two more middlewares. So I'm gonna say app.use um, passport.initialize and passport.session. All right, so what this is going to do, this is actually not necessary. It was necessary in the previous versions, but we could remove it from here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it the way it is. So what it's going to do is just going to initiate passport for incoming request as it's stated here. And this one is just going to attach the user that we get from our database and attach it to the request object. There's going to be a user property inside this request object, and that's the what this middleware does. All right, so what I'm also going to do here is duplicate this, and I'm going to say post in the same endpoint, and here we're going to say sign up user to DB. Right, and I'm gonna duplicate this. Actually, I'm gonna copy it, and here I'm gonna say post, and here we do not need that because password is going to take care of that. So passport.authenticate. I'm gonna tell that we are using the local strategy, and it's gonna take a bunch of options. So failure flash is true. So if we have any errors or we fail to um, log in the user, we're gonna give them some messages to see. All right, so failure redirect is going to be login, and success redirect is going to be our home page. All right, so that's all set up. So in order to actually get started and register our users to database, what I'm gonna do is to actually create the model inside our database. So we're going to develop a schema. So I'm going to say user.js, and here we're going to require mongoose, and I'm going to say mongoose, and we're going to get the schema out of it. All right, so and now I'm just going to write that schema. So user schema is equal to a new schema, going to be an object, and inside this object we're going to have an ID which is of type string. It's required, and also we have a default value for it. So I want the MongoDB to automatically populate this property for us. I'm going to say date. Actually, this should be date now to string. All right, so that's our ID. And the next thing we're going to need is the name. I'm gonna copy this value so we don't have to write them again. Put the comma here and copy that again. Alright, so this is going to be email, and it's string and it's required, and this one is going to be password. Alright, so our user schema is actually done, but I'm just going to add a little bit of options. So the collection name is going to be users. So let's just go ahead and export this model. So module.export is going to be equal to mongoose.model. The name is going to be user, and we're gonna pass in the user schema. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's just go ahead and go to index.js, and I'm gonna initiate a try catch block. I'm gonna give the error to the next function. Alright, let me get that next function, and this should be an async function. And after that, what we're going to do here is first to hash the password. And for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to assume that the user actually sends a valid JSON request, and all the necessary fields inside our body are present. So const hashed password is going to be bcrypt. Haven't required it, so let me just go ahead and do that. Const bcrypt require bcrypt. All right, so here I'm gonna say wait bcrypt dot hash request dot body dot password and 10 rounds of salt. All right, so after that we're actually going to require our user model. So I'm gonna say const user model is going to be gonna go 2 steps, actually 1 step back, inside model, and this is it. Copy that, and inside here I'm gonna say await user model dot create, and we're going to pass in this option. So the ID field is taken care of, but we're gonna provide the rest of them. So email is going to be request.body.email, and the password is going to be the hashed password, and after that name is also going to be request.body.name. Alright, so we're almost done here. The next thing I want to do is just to, in case everything is actually working, I'm just gonna say return res.redirect. I'm gonna redirect them to login page. Alright, so let me format this, and I think we got everything working, so we could finally go ahead and no, actually so what people actually misunderstand about Passport, and this is where a lot of people get intimidated about Passport, because they think that this verify function should have a really specific structure, or there are certain steps that we have to follow, but this is not really the case. So what we generally want to do here is to search for our the user that we want to get with this credentials that Passport has extracted for us. And there are gonna be maybe 1 or 2 cases that we either find the user, or we don't, or the credentials don't match. So I'm just gonna go ahead and write this down, and I'll explain later. So the first thing we're gonna do is to do a try catch block, and I'm gonna just give the error to the done function. And firstly we're just going to search for the user. So const user to be found is going to be await, and actually we're not going to use mongoose here. I'm gonna go to model and user, so let's get the user model here. Alright, I'm gonna say user model dot find one. I'm gonna find it by this email that Passport has extracted for us. Alright, so, and if that's not the case and there is no user to be found, what I'm gonna do is return done, and the first parameter that this done function gets is the error. So I'm gonna say we do not have any errors, because this is just an operational error, so we didn't find the user, but there's no actual code error or any problem in our code. So, and the next one is the user, so we do not have a user, it's false, and we do not have any errors. If we get past this line, it means that we have actually found the user. So what we're going to do is to check for the credentials and see if the password is actually a match. So is match is going to be await bcrypt.compare, and we're going to compare this password that we have extracted with the one inside our database. So user to be found dot password. All right, so I'm gonna say if there is no match, we're going to return with done. So we're done, and we do not have any errors, but we also do not have any user. And if we get past this line, it means that we have actually user. So I'm going to return done, and we do not have any error, but there is the user to be found. So the next thing I want to do is to actually write this serialized user and deserialized user, and I'm just going to write them down, and then I'll be back with the explanation. So I'm going to return done, and we're gonna give null as the first parameter and the user.id as the second one, and inside this deserialized user, what I'm gonna do is return done null, and here I'm gonna say, so let me make this an async function, and here I'm gonna say await user model dot find one, gonna find with the ID. All right, so with this ID that we have been provided. All right, so the thing with this serialized user and deserialized user is, so when we actually, when our app calls to this passport to do its thing, firstly this function is going to be ran, and it's going to check for all of these cases, and so eventually if we have a user, when we pass it to this done function, then it's going to this user is going to be populated with this property, and inside this serialized user we're gonna have it, and the passport is going to serialize that information about the user and stuff it in a cookie, and then when we actually send our next request, that cookie is also going to be sent, because remember HTTP is a stateless protocol. So when we log into our application once and we authenticate ourselves, for example, if you want to access another part of the application like dashboard, HTTP doesn't know that we have been logged in 10 seconds ago, and what it's going to do is going to ask us for the credentials, and it's going to ask us to authenticate ourselves again. But that's not really how we how we experience it in the websites that we go to every day, or that's not really the overall flow that we are accustomed to. So the way this works is when we serialize this user and we put the that data inside the cookie, for the future request, what Passport is going to do is going to so our browser is going to send a cookie with every request, and when Passport sees that cookie, it's going to deserialize it and see that we have been authenticated before, and it's going to let us see that particular part of the website, so maybe for like a dashboard. So I'm just going to add some comments here so you can see the overall flow of this thing. So here I'm gonna say console.log verify function ran. Let me copy that, and here I'm gonna say user ID from serialize function, and it's going to be user.id. All right, I'm gonna copy this and replace it with this one. Put the deserialize, and this should be just ID. All right, so I'm gonna remove them later on, but I just want to show you the overall flow of this. So with that out of the way, I think we're finally ready to test this out. So let's go to our index, see is everything working fine. All right, so let me just go ahead and clear the server, clear the terminal, and start our application. Alright, so it seems that we have an error, invalid scheme, expected connection string to start with MongoDB. Alright, so we have a problem here. Mongo. Alright, this should be okay. I don't know what seems to be problem. Alright, so let me just start again. Alright, so we have an error at, this is for the, alright, let me just check this out. So inside our, oh, I have actually given the port here. I'm really sorry. This should be DBURI, so that's my mistake. Alright, so everything is fine. We connected to DB and server is running. So let's just go ahead and test this out. So what I'm gonna do here is open Chrome. I'm gonna change my actually let's go ahead and do it here. Alright, as you can see, we have the home page, register, login. So and I'm gonna pull up my MongoDB Compass, and this is just the graphical user interface for our and it allows us to see what's going on inside our database. So I'm going to create a new connection, and this is the port that we have entered. So it's going to be connection 1. Alright, so all saved. Alright, as you can see, we have a MyDB inside here, and we have the both session and users. I'm going to remove this so it creates this for us again. So let's just go ahead and test this out. I'm going to go to register, and name is going to be, let's say, james at gmail.com, and the password is going to be James. Alright, so let me register. So if I go to MongoDB Compass and let me refresh that. So right inside my DB we should have, alright, so as you can see we have created our user, and we should have a session. We also have this session, and it has 30 seconds of max age. So let's just go ahead and sign in. So I'm going to say james at gmail.com and James. Alright, so we are inside our home page now, but what I'm going to do here is to actually go to index.ejs, and I'm going to say here welcome, and I'm gonna basically display a name, so the name of the user. So then I'm going to come here inside the index.js, and when we render this file we could also pass in some value. So I'm going to say name is going to be request.user. As you can see we have the user object here, and I'm going to say name. Alright, so after that let's just go ahead and test that once more. So I'm gonna refresh this. Alright, so as you can see it says we cannot read names. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna develop a middleware for this later on, but for now let's just go ahead and test it out. So name is going to be let's say, I don't know, Mike at gmail.com. Password is going to be Mike. So then let's just go ahead and enter our credentials, Mike at gmail.com. As you can see we have our the overall flow, and says homepage, welcome Mike. And if I come here we have a bunch of errors, but they are from the past. So what I want to do now is just to refresh this terminal and show you the overall flow of this application. So I'm gonna, alright, so let's just, so if I go to home now, Right, so our server's down, so let's start it again. So I'm gonna say register. So let's just register using a new user name. So right, so inside here I'm gonna say ali@gmail.com. That's actually a name, I'm sorry. ali@gmail.com, and the password's ali. Really strong credentials. Alright, so as you can, let's just log in and pay attention to the terminal. As you can see, the verify function runs first, then the serialize function and deserialize function. So now if I just visit any other page, only this deserialize function is going to run, and that our information is going to be deserialized from that cookie. So if I, let's say I want to go to register, you can see the deserialize only going to be run. So it's working perfectly fine. I'm gonna kill this process, and so what I'm gonna do here is just gonna give it some let's just go ahead inside our middlewares, and I'm gonna create new middlewares. So let's say is authenticated.js, and this is going to be const is authenticated. It's gonna be a middleware. So alright, so it's gonna have request, response, and next, and we're basically checking if this user is authenticated. If it's authenticated, we're just gonna call next and let them do whatever they want. But if not, we're gonna redirect them. So I'm gonna say if request.is authenticated. So this is a property inside request that we have. Alright, so let's just open this, and I'm gonna say return next. Alright, and if that's not the case and they're not authenticated, we're gonna res.redirect to login. Alright, so let me just module.exports. Alright, so we have that, and also I'm gonna create another one. It's really just basically this middleware, but the order of our code is different. So is logged in.js. So I'm gonna go here, copy that, and I'm gonna is logged in, and here what we're going to do. So if this user is authenticated or logged in, what we're going to do is to redirect them to our home page. So if, for example, if they want to access the login page, or they want to access the register page, they shouldn't be allowed because they're already logged in. So I'm gonna say they should be redirected to home page, and if not, let's just call next. All right, so let me just put this here, and I'm gonna copy this. All right, so everything seems to be working fine. So I'm gonna put this here. So is logged in. So if they're logged in, they shouldn't be allowed to visit this page. And also, if they are logged in, they shouldn't be available to access this page. So is logged in. Alright, so then what we're going to do is inside this index, remember we are displaying a name, so we don't want anyone to visit this home page if they're not authenticated, or we do not have a user object. So I'm going to say is authenticated. All right, so this should work fine. I'm going to just refactor this code, and let's just go ahead and test this out. Start the server. Going to, all right, so let me make this bigger. So if I just try to go to this home page, as you can see, I'm redirected to login page, and I'm not allowed to do that. So let's just register now. So I'm gonna say let me just go ahead and check our current state of our database. So inside here, I'm gonna refresh, and I'm gonna delete this document so we have a fresh database. Also inside the sessions. All right, so sessions are expired. All right, so I'm gonna say James at gmail.com, and James here for the password. I'm gonna register and go to login. So I'm gonna James at gmail.com and James for the password. So we should get redirected to homepage. As you can see, homepage, welcome James. So if I try to register or log in, I shouldn't be allowed to, as you can see. All right, so it's letting us to do that. I don't know why. We shouldn't really. All right, let me go ahead and check this out. So inside oh yeah, that's my mistake. This shouldn't be here. What I want to do is put it here. All right, so is logged in. All right, so with that out of the way, we could actually go on and wrap this video up. But one thing that I want to do is to actually provide a way to sign out. So what I want to do here is to just create a sign out route. So I'm going to say app dot delete, and it's going to be at this particular endpoint. I'm going to give it the request and response and next. And here what I'm going to do is just log out the user. So Passport is going to provide us with a logout option. So I'm going to do that. It's going to take in function, it's going to callback function as a parameter, and it's going to have an error. So what I'm going to say is if there is any error, if error, just return next and give it the error. But if there is no error and we are signed out, let's just redirect them to our login. So redirect to login. All right, so this should be fine. And I'm just gonna go ahead and inside our index.ejs create this form, and the action is going to be logout, and the method is going to be, so we do not have any method of so the only methods that we can provide here is get and post, but we're going to override it with a package. So I'm going to say post, and inside here I'm going to say button submit, and this is going to be logout. And inside this action, what I'm going to do is just give it a query parameters. So it's going to be as underscore method, and it's going to be delete. All right, so we're going to install that package and express, I think it's method override. All right, let's see if that installs. All right, we have our new package, and inside here what I'm gonna do is to app.use method override. go ahead and alright, so copy that, say override, and what we're going to say is underscore method. Alright, so if everything seems to be fine, and let me just go ahead and test this out. So I'll start the server again. Alright, it's working just fine, and let me visit this. Alright, it's not allowing us to see it, so it's working good. So register mike@gmail.com, and again, alright, so register successful, and just sign in. So mike@gmail.com, and alright, so we're inside this home page, and if I log out, this should go ahead and delete our session. Alright, so as you can see, everything is working just fine, and this session inside our database should be also deleted, and yeah, it's deleted. This is, I think, from the previous ones. Alright, so the last thing I want to do is to actually show flash messages to the users. So in this login page, in case the login went wrong or anything happened, we want to make I want to make users to see certain messages so they know what's happening. So I'm gonna go to VS Code, and I'm gonna go to passport configs, and when we return this done function, we could also provide an object, and it's going to have a message property. I'm gonna say 404 user not found. Alright, and here I'm gonna say message, and this is going to be credentials don't match. Alright, and inside our login.ejs, I'm gonna go under here, and I'm gonna say if messages dot error. So if we have messages and it's an error message, what I want to do is so let me close that. Here I want to just show the messages dot error. So if there is this error, we're gonna show it, and I'm gonna say close that, and here. Alright, so that's taken care of, and let's just go ahead and test it out. So what I'm gonna do is refresh this, and I'm gonna register. Let's call this I don't know, Jax. Alright, so now we should, so now I'm just gonna enter an email that doesn't exist. So I'm gonna say, I don't know, mike2 at gmail.com, and something for the password. As you can see, it says 404 user not found, and let's just go ahead and enter the right email. But I'm going to enter wrong password, so credentials don't match. So if we actually enter everything correctly, we should get logged in. Alright, so as you can see, it works really fine, and that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I was able to actually make you understand Passport better so you can use it in your own projects in the future. And I'm just gonna wrap this video up right here, and I'll see you in the next videos.